So here we are for the Tuesday night advanced lecture, and tonight we have the favorite of everybody at the LA Chess Club, which is Grandmasters resigning when they have a winning position. They obviously didn't see, not only could they stop what they considered a checkmate coming against them, but they also had a move that would have turned the tables and allowed them to win the game, not only save it. So the first game we're going to do is from Torrey in New York in 1924. Okay, the Mexican Grandmaster is playing the white pieces, and he resigned because he saw black playing rook to c1, and there was no way it comes out queen, and he's going to be checkmated in a couple of moves. Okay, and this is why he resigned. He had a resource. Okay, not only does he stop the checkmate, but he turns the tables and he wins the game. So why don't we look at the board, study it for about 30 seconds, and I'm sure some of you might be able to find the move that white could have played to save the day, and then we'll play it out. So it's been about 15 seconds so far. So let's see if anybody can see the move for white that saves the day. Anybody got it yet?
Rook e8.
Rook e8 does not stop this check. King has to come out, queen here, and you're still going to get mated in about 2 moves. So rook e8 doesn't work. It just doesn't stop this check here.
Rook d6.
That's the magic move. Rook d6 is the magic move. Rook d6 saves the day, because now if rook says check, he just takes the pawn. If rook takes rook,
Queen.
Okay, he can come out.
No, he queens. G8 queen.
Yeah, but he'd be in check.
No. Rook takes rook and then G8 pawn to G8 queen.
I understand, but if he says check here,
Right.
king takes pawn,
Yeah.
rook takes rook, check,
And then
king
he
takes rook.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's out. He can't do that,
exactly.
right? So what happens if pawn takes rook?
Then he has two pawns on the 7th.
Pawn to f7,
Yeah.
and he's going to get a queen
Right.
for a rook. And he could have saved the day. He missed this resource. Simple one mover. But the idea behind it obviously is you don't want to give up a rook for free, and that's the psychology of chess. We're taught that material means everything, okay? And while it is probably the first one of the 5 factors when you're always assessing a position as material, it's not the only one. There are 5 other factors. And this came into play. It stopped this, allowed this, f7, or even g8 if rook takes, queen. And you can come back because you could take with the queen, king takes, f7, and you're still going to queen. And you get another queen for the rook. So that was the one that Torrey missed, okay? All right, let's do some more, see how much fun these are. So really, the old adage in chess is it's never over till it's over, and it's never more true in these games here that we're going to study. It really is quite amazing to see that grandmasters who are used to looking deep, sometimes 10, 12, 15 moves into the future, will miss these simply because they just overlook it. Either perhaps they're in time trouble, which is very possible, or they are down material already and they just feel that there's just no way to continue. Okay, that's the black side. And let's see, we need a black queen. Here we go. Here. And so white side. What else are we missing over here? Black bishop over here. And I believe that's, oh, white queen, where the pawn is. Okay. So let's take a look and see what we have here. In this free game, white has just sacrificed his queen on f6. Pawn takes queen. But the key move, of course, is rook to g3, and this would be mate, wouldn't it?
Well, king to h8.
H8, and then bishop takes pawn, checkmate, right? So black resigned when he had a resource that he missed. I'll give you another 30 seconds and maybe you can find the resource that black missed. Because obviously taking leads to checkmate in 2 moves. Here, and then bishop takes pawn mate with the king at h8. So he cannot take the queen because it would be checkmate in 2 moves.
Queen takes g2.
Queen takes g2.
That's mate, yeah. Queen takes g2 is mate.
But the let's take a look. Then I'm missing I'm missing a pawn here, guys. Sorry, my fault. My fault. There's a pawn here. My fault. Let me double check. Yes, that's correct. So no mates here. What else does he have? He can't check here or here or here. Rook, bishop, cover, mate. Check squares. And of course, if he does anything but check, the queen's going to take the pawn and say mate because of the battery. So black had a resource. Yes. Who came up with that? Ryan?
Yes.
My goodness gracious.
It was the same logic as the last puzzle.
Okay, interference. So the rook no longer can come over. Okay, so the point is that if white just takes the queen, black can now just trade queens, and the rook can't come over and say check and lead to mate. But again, what you're doing is you're sacking a queen. And the mentality is that you just don't come up with that. So you don't even think about that, but you have to look at all the possibilities. And that was Ahu's Berlin 1920, this game was played. Okay? All right, that was the second one. Let's take a look at some more. See, we get a king here, 2 pawns here, a pawn here, black knight here, queens are off the board. Okay, black pawn here, there, there. And I think, let me double and triple check after the last puzzle. Correct. Attacking, king 2 pawns, rook, pawn. Okay, black played the nice combination of knight to e3, pawn takes e3, rook to b2, and white resigned because if rook takes rook, pawn takes, and you can't stop promoting to a queen. So let's take a look at the first move. Knight to e3, check. Obviously, white must take, otherwise he's just going to lose this rook, and the pawn's going to queen anyway. So he has no choice. So that was the first move that he saw was, well, I'll take the knight. And then he saw black's move, rook b2, and white resigned. But he had a really nice counterplay. White missed a real nice counterplay. So another 20 seconds. See if you can find what white has as a resource to stop this. It's rather obvious he can't take the pawn because it's pinned.
Rook to f2.
That is correct. That's exactly what he forgot.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Rook f2 is the magic move. Okay? Because what happens is rook f2, pawn pushes, okay, and now you have
Bishop a3.
bishop a3.
Okay.
And what happens is that if you queen the pawn, everybody see you get your queen. Rook takes rook. You're threatening checkmate.
Right.
If you push a pawn here to stop the checkmate,
You win the queen.
you say check, discovered attack on the queen, and you win the queen, and you will win the game.
There was something else there. Can you put that back? please?
Sure.
There was something else. I just want to see. There was something else I was thinking. There was something else. No, well, bishop's at c5.
Bishop's at c5, you're correct. Okay, so remember he sacked the knight to
Right.
open it up.
Yeah.
White missed this. What does black have?
Okay. c2, like you said. And then is white forced to play bishop a3?
Well, how else does he stop
Okay.
the pawn?
Bishop a3. And then rook takes pawn.
This?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Okay,
not a
if
force.
rook takes pawn,
Yeah.
well, then I guess what he has to do is he just has to block, I suppose.
Okay.
At least there's a game here now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he can continue playing.
He blocks now a5.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And I guess you're going to have to come over.
Okay.
You have to come over, right?
a4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
king over.
Okay, a3.
Where's the rook going?
The rook doesn't have to go anywhere. How about he can play he can play e5, I guess. Yeah, e5.
5, king up. Rook's going to take pawn.
Okay.
This is going to fall, and with the bishop, I don't think he has enough for the bishop. He has 2 pawns for the bishop. I don't think it's enough.
Rook to a1. a2. Yeah.
There's not enough. If he comes here, he just takes the
No,
pawn.
he doesn't go a2 right away. He takes d4.
Takes d4. Here, pawn takes. I still don't think there's enough. There's just not enough.
c5.
Well, now you got to pass her.
d4.
Here.
Okay, now A2. Yeah,
There's nothing there.
nothing. Okay.
The bishop is too strong,
Okay.
but it's close. You made it a lot closer than it was in.
Just wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. But that was good. That was
Okay.
good. Okay. You made it a lot closer.
Okay.
Okay, let's take a look at the next one. You're fighting to the end like Bernie.
If I want to win, I fight to the end. I don't care.
Okay, this one is played again in Berlin, 1937. Okay, I believe that's it. Let's see, we need a bunch of queens here. Okay, White resigned because he was going to lose his queen, was pinned by the rook. But he could have mated in a few moves. Let's take a look, 30 seconds. He would have had mate in 4.
Black?
It's no, White. White resigned because he was going to lose his queen.
Right.
It was pinned. Okay, it's White to move.
Okay. Bishop takes F7 check.
That is the first move.
Okay.
That's the first move. Bishop takes F7
The
check.
king is actually forced to take. He has no moves.
Well, let's take a look. He
Yeah.
can't move here because of the queen.
Right.
Can't move here or here because of the bishop.
Right.
So his only move is to take.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Now
And
you,
now-
you can't, since you can't castle into check, just rook to.
Right, that's
just-
correct. He
just
couldn't
rook-
castle.
Just rook to.
F8 check
Yeah, okay.
or F1 check.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. And king to G8.
King to G8 is the only move.
Yeah, rook to F8 check,
Rook to F8 check is correct.
and he has.
What's the only move?
He takes F.
You see now the pin is gone.
Yeah, exactly, and then queen to G7.
Queen to G7 and checkmate.
Right.
And that's what it was. And it was only 4 moves. 8 ply for a grandmaster to miss 4 moves for an 8 ply. It's unusual. But they get so demoralized, because they're so used to seeing all of these tactics, and when it's done on them, they lose heart. Instead of looking for a resource, the emotion of having your queen pinned to your king, knowing you're going to lose, they just give up. But hey, check. King has to move. Rook over check. Rook has to leave, so the pin's gone. And then mate on the next move. He should have been able to see that. But I know the demoralization of about to lose your queen, you don't think clearly. You lose it. And what these games show is you never give up until it's over. Got it? Okay. Next one, London, 1938. Aren't these fun, guys? Aren't these really fun? This is what chess is all about. Okay, so let's see, where's the black queen? Over there. Black queen is there, white queen is over here. So let's make sure. Rook, bishop, king on the back rank. The pawns are correct. Those pawns are correct. That pawn is correct. The bishop's correct. Rook, 4 pawns and a king with the queen. Here, white resigned in view of rook takes d2. Rook takes d2. Queen to g4. Pawn to h5. When he would end up a rook down. Okay. He would end up a rook down. See, the problem is that if the queen takes, so let's see, rook here, rook takes. If the queen moves away anywhere on this diagonal, he gets mated, right? So the queen has to stay on the diagonal, which is why he went to g4. But then he saw h5.
Are you sure black's not getting losing a rook?
No. Yeah, actually black would lose a rook if he could somehow hold on to the queen. Right? But the problem is that black resigned because he saw this. He saw this and he said, oh boy, I can checkmate here. So the queen can't go here to stay on the diagonal because of the bishop. So the only move for the queen is here. And then when he saw this, he said, it's over. Where am I going to go? And I'm going to get mated. Or I'm going to lose my queen and I'll be a full rook down. Okay? Right? So this is the situation. But this is what he overlooked.
There's a queen.
This is white to move now. Is it white to move? Yes, it's white to move now.
There's a black queen on the board.
Well, we just did this whole sequence.
All right.
Where white took, black took, and now white resigned.
So it's white's move.
It's white's move, but he had a resource.
Okay.
Now remember, black cannot checkmate as long as the queen stays on the diagonal. So what's the resource for white?
I mean, to stop mate or to just...
Well, he's got to keep the queen on the diagonal. No. He'll just take the queen. And he'll win. What's the resource? Well, what's the immediate threat, guys? What's the immediate threat from black?
Well, pawn takes queen.
So how do you stop what's the only way to stop pawn taking queen?
Well, there's numerous ways. Bishop takes pawn is one.
Okay, let's try that one. Let's try that first one.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the problem is he still can't checkmate, but he still wants to get rid of the queen. Okay? Now, if this pawn takes...
Now he goes queen to g4.
He can go queen g4, or, let's see... How about... Queen g4. What happens if he tries to get rid of the queen?
Queen takes g6.
Queen takes g6 and everything is going to fall apart because then he has time to push a pawn. Okay? So that one might be out. How about, let's see, he took here, right? He was here. The queen, where's the queen? Oh, the queen went to g4, right? And this bishop is sitting here. What were the pawns? The pawn structure was this. This is how it was, right? This is how it was. So, we said bishop takes g6.
Right.
If we went with f taking,
Right.
and it didn't work because he could go here, and if the pawn pushed, he would just take here, and then he could come back and block and be queen against rook bishop. With the extra 2 pawns, he should win, right? So let's try it with h takes instead of f takes.
Okay, queen to g4.
Queen to g4, and now there's no pawn to push here. And if he pushes here again, he takes again. And all he had to do was bishop takes pawn. It's best to look at the immediate resource you have, even if you don't see 4 or 5 moves past it. Take it 1 move at a time and see what transpires, because if you can only see 1 move into the future, well, bishop takes pawn, stops the queen, I got nothing to lose, let me try it. And then all of a sudden, maybe you'll then see that, hey, he can't attack my queen anymore because I can take g6 now. Both pawns are gone. Take it 1 move at a time. You may not see the entire sequence, but why not take the first move that you do see that stops the mate or the problem, because then maybe you'll see the next move and the next move, and all of a sudden, after 4 one-movers, you have the entire 4-move sequence. Okay, that was very interesting. All right, let's try it. These are a lot of fun, guys. These are just a lot of fun, because it's just amazing that the GMs would overlook this stuff. But like I said, emotionally, they're probably spent. They're probably just so demoralized that they didn't see the sequence in the first place. Okay, so where's the white queen? White queen is here. King is here. 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 Black queen over here. Black pawn here. Black pawn there, white pawn there. These are gone. Yep, and there's a bishop next to the queen. Bishop next to the queen. That rook is there, and there's one more rook here. So, oh, there was a white rook over there. Looks like he's down in exchange. White seems to be down in exchange. So in this strange case, black is the exchange and a pawn up. And after queen to e6, he must eventually win. However, he saw something even better. He thought that he could get away with queen takes f2.
That's what I was looking at.
And he resigned immediately after playing it. And it says one wonders what he could have thought both in playing that move and in resigning. The move was very good.
Yeah, that wins.
Either he takes the white queen, okay, with check. How would he? Why does he take it with
Queen,
check?
or king? If king takes queen, rook takes queen, check. If queen takes
Here.
if queen takes queen, then rook takes queen, check. King takes.
Oh, and then the
rook
rook
takes rook. Rook takes rook.
Rook takes rook.
Ends up in exchange.
Right. So it was very good.
Right.
But and he takes with the queen. Right. Okay. Did he overlook the flight square on g7 in the last variation? Because after this pawn takes, I guess he thought there was a mate here.
Yeah.
That's why he figured, uh-oh. So let's go through the variation and find out what it is. Okay. Queen takes queen. All right. Rook takes queen, check. And then rook takes rook. And what does white do?
Bishop takes c6.
Bishop takes c6. I guess he could come here. Bishop up, right?
Oh, you don't have you don't have to, but you can.
And then I think 3 against 2 should win with a rook, right?
Right.
Now, if king takes, then rook takes queen check, right?
Right.
And then you still take the
Right.
rook. So he had a tempo, and he just forgot that he had the tempos because he had 2 checks, and he was going to win the rook back. So it doesn't say what he was thinking when he took the queen and said, oh, I forgot, I messed up. The safer play would have been queen to e6, and he would have won anyway, I think. That's what it said. That was a strange, they called that a very, very, very strange game. Okay, this final position, a decisive last round game. By winning it, white would have tied for the championship, according to the story. It was the women's championship of Greater Germany. It was played in Vienna in 1943, right in the middle of World War II. Keller said, it's over. I prefer to play on a little. Schlemmer said, no, I mean I'm resigning. White wins, and it went through a variation. And she resigned when she had a winning position. So let's check it out and see what it is. Ooh, this is a very, very instructive pawn endgame. Okay, so white is down a bishop for 2 pawns, right? And the only chance I see for white to win is somehow cashing in this passer. I mean, to me, that seems to be the only logical way white can win. But white resigned, figuring that there was no way.
Then isn't black resigning? White's.
Let's see, according to the story, Keller was versing Schemmler. Keller was white and said, it's over. But I prefer to play on a little, Schlemmer said. No, I mean I'm resigning, white said.
Oh.
But white wins
Yeah.
with pawn to c6.
Yeah.
This is the way it would go. The threat, of course, is king here. And if here it's check, then what, though? Oh, here. Then the pawn here, pawn takes, and this comes in, because the bishop has to guard that pawn. Okay? And the f-pawn will queen first. So, bishop d5, king b6, king d8, king takes b5. King c7. King c5. Bishop takes c6.
Now g6.
Now g6 and wins. Because if you take, push, and there's no way to stop this. If you don't take, there's no way for the bishop to come around and guard this square because it's blocked by its own pawn. And white could have won with a simple little c6. Maybe the pressure of World War II got to them. although Vienna was an open city.